So we are here with Robert, talking about different products that we have to offer, but then also the why, where they best fit, and where that fits for guys in their operations.
Absolutely.
I'm kind of excited about this duo. So we did a duo kind of on different kelp species, which you can find those on YouTube. But then also we're going to be doing more on the nutrition side. Okay,
Absolutely, the food.
Yeah, so we have two products here: Launch and Balancer. Okay, let's focus on Launch and talk about that, because you said that's definitely more of your vegetative growth, vegetative stimulant. Let's dig more about that, and then we'll roll into Balancer when it comes to a crop.
Absolutely. Yeah, down in Houston at AgMerica, we're really the surgeons, I would say, of the ag world.
There you go.
And we're not taking shotguns and just shooting holes in things. We're trying to make key interventions at very key timings to address specific problems to get the biggest return on investment for the farmer. So Launch, it's, well, we were talking a little bit, we've talked a lot actually about kelps, I think 3 or 4 different podcasts now.
Yep.
And how the kelps, there's different kelps for different timings. This is because of their hormone packages, their hormone profiles. The plant has a hormone symphony.
Okay.
And
it's
the ratios of these hormones over time that dictate what it is, whether I'm a leaf or a root or a canopy or a frame or a flower or an ear.
Okay.
Or if I'm drying down, dying, and harvested away.
Yes.
So the hormones that we've been talking about, these signals, they're like the light switch. Better analogy, they're like the key to the truck. So these hormones will go, we can start it. But if we don't have the fuel in the gas tank, that truck's not going anywhere. So the micronutrients and macronutrients, these are the fuel. These are the what's in the gas. It's a little more complicated than the truck because we use different gas at different stages in the plant's lifetime. Okay. So Launch is designed for the start and grow phases of development, and it's the gas, the key nutrients that the plants need the most of.
Okay.
And Launch is really designed to help complement some of these herbicide applications.
Okay.
If you are growing crops and using a glufosinate or even a glyphosate or even a glufosinate,
okay,
these chemicals, they work very well. They get into the plant, and they're very strong chelators. So what they'll have a tendency to do, and in corn, it's typically zinc, and in bean, it's typically manganese.
Yep.
But what you'll get after a herbicide application is a flash. And this is from the herbicide molecule itself causing stress in the desired crop, not in the weed.
Yep.
It's natural. It's going to happen.
Yep.
It's farmer-induced stress. And it's also chelating those nutrients and inducing a deficiency.
Yeah.
So let's say you have all the zinc, manganese, boron in the world, and this is just all over the field. When you apply a herbicide like that, it's not available to the plant, at least temporarily.
Well, and I think before we get much crazier into that as well, it's like not all herbicides are chelators, but but the ones that we're talking about, glufosinate, glyphosate, Roundup Liberty.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, yeah, they have some of those functions.
And not just that, too. Think of farming. What are we using? We're using a whole lot of phosphorus in many, many cases.
Yep.
So if you're using anything with that magical 34 or 37 number in the middle, you are just guaranteed phosphorus interacts with zinc primarily, but also manganese. They're very similar.
Yep.
So you are absolutely creating an environment in the furrow that's inducing micronutrient deficiencies.
Yes.
So it helps to add these micronutrients to stop that.
So you talk about the Launch product, and we had the video on the crop stress, and we were talking. We're talking about as well the stress that's created when you spray herbicide over the top.
Absolutely.
Right. So if there was a better fit, Launch would be the way to go.
Well, Launch is going to help to provide all those things that are lacking. In a short season crop, and I would consider even long season corn, a very short season in terms of a perennial cycle.
Oh, exactly.
You have
it's an annual crop. It's what it is.
Absolutely.
So.
And all of your energy and all of your yield is coming from photosynthesis. This is the engine of carbon capture.
Yeah.
So when it's yellow, photosynthesis is green. Like seriously, it's the chloroplast is green.
Yep.
When it's yellow, you're not absorbing that energy. You're not photochemically efficient, is what the physiologists would call it.
Okay.
So it's important to make sure you reduce those yellow days. So a product like this is going to stop the micronutrient deficiency that's induced. It's very supportive of those early stages of growth, the start and the grow phases. It has the micronutrients and macros. It's nitrogen, sulfur, zinc, manganese, and a little bit of boron.
Okay.
I like boron. I'm a boron guy.
Okay.
And so it has these, and these are very supportive of the hormones in the first two stages.
Okay.
So
and just to rewind back, 3 major stages.
there's a start.
Start.
That's our furrow or seed treatment.
Yep.
If you want to argue, maybe we can argue it into side dress timing.
Okay. Okay. So we have start, and then step 2
Is grow. This is the establishment and closure of a canopy. So this is when we're growing. We want to maximize cytokinin. We want vegetative growth. We want to close the canopy quickly. And we want to build what I like to call the frame that's going to support those later reproductive organs. So that's the flowers and the fruits.
Awesome. And I know we talked about this in another video, but just in case somebody watched this video and not the last one, you understand that those phases are there, those 3 phases. So
Absolutely.
launch fits in phase 1 and phase 2.
In phase 1 and it's designed specifically for row crops in phases 1 and 2, start and grow.
Okay. Okay. So we're trying to keep that plant balanced with micronutrients, not giving it any excuse not to have vegetative growth and to not produce sugar. I mean, at the end of the day, we want it to get sunlight, bring it into that leaf, go through the photosynthesis process, and produce root exudate. So then it's feeding biology. But long story short, if you're missing the keys of those interactions, either within the soil or within the plant has to work harder to make that sugar.
Oh, absolutely.
So a launch product has that blend of micronutrients to help you keep making sugar the most efficiently as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just sugar. So all of the different secondary and accessory chemicals in the plant. Manganese, for instance, makes a whole family of proteins.
Okay.
And they're plant pathogenous-related plant proteins. So big, long PRPP proteins, we call them.
Okay.
But this is how a plant defends itself against the environment and insects and diseases. So, you might, how you usually see fungicide later in the season, right?
Yep.
But a lot of this is due to, these early on deficiencies in manganese that are leading to a deficiency in the plant defense system, those PRPP proteins, and then that allows some of these weak diseases to show up at the end of the season that we have to spray fungicides for. So to take it to like even an agronomic point of view, the first line of defense against everything, weeds, insects, and diseases, is a strong, healthy, growing plant. And, even if these things are in your soil, it doesn't mean they're in the plant at the right time and place in the right concentration.
Okay.
And then farmers, I love it, me and you too. We want the highest yields possible.
Well, of course.
We're not growing things to get short bushels here. So when we're pushing the genetic potential of these plants into those levels, and think of it, even in our short careers, we've seen yields double. For the most part, in the high yield fields anyway.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like throwing gasoline on a fire. You're going to burn fuel all that much quicker. So it helps to really put it where it's needed. Takes the confusion out of it all.
Well, and it goes to the part of hitting those next levels, okay? The plant has to be balanced too.
Yes.
And it's just the honest truth with it. So the launch product is going to just help that plant be more efficient. It's going to launch it into more vegetative growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I coined the term there a little bit. But so with that, let's move into, we got vegetative stage. We use the launch product. The plant was producing sugars, secondary metabolites, so on and so forth. Now we get to reproductive stage, and that's where there's probably a better fit for a product like Balancer.
Yeah, now we want to switch our energy. So To this whole launch category, what we're trying to do is maximize this exothermic growth. The energy, we're taking it from the plant and we're pushing it outward to grow more plant.
Yep.
When we hit a reproductive timing, so this might be tassel in corn or flower in bean, the first flower, we want to stop growing exothermically, outwardly, and we want to start growing inwardly. We want to start taking all of this frame, making our sugar, and transporting that to the things we're going to harvest, our seeds, grains, tubers, whatever it might be.
Okay.
So this is when we switch into the balancer chemistry.
Okay.
So here we're looking at a product that's real high in boron and molybdenum. And we put a little bit of nitrogen in there just to open the pipes up so the plant can absorb it all in. But the boron and the molybdenum are going to increase the source to sink relationship of that plant. It's going to take the sugars out of the leaves, and it's going to make a stronger pull into the grain that's the sink.
Yep.
And a great analogy, I mean, it's your little kids, the little babies. And when you have this little newborn, you don't tell it when to eat.
It tells you when it's going to eat.
Little Robbie is going to eat when he starts screaming. And mom's going to feed the baby that screams the loudest. It's the squeaky wheel.
Yep.
So balancer, what it's really doing is balancing some of these exothermic nutrients. It's helping to reduce the nitrate in the plant, which is a very exothermic nutrient.
Yep.
And it helps bring those sugars in. It makes all the grains scream louder, so mom puts more sugar from those leaves into the babies.
And that's the importance of boron.
Yeah, and boron. So it's all about the Pac-Man, I call it, my Pac-Man analogy.
Yeah.
So boron is really involved in auxin. If you've ever overdone it with boron, maybe you got some Solubor and you're out there, you put a little too much because this podcast just sounds great. So you get some and you just like, yeah, let me try it. 5 pounds was good. Let's do 10.
Yep.
What does boron toxicity look like? 2,4-D damage. So boron, for every auxin, unregulated hormones are herbicides.
Yep.
So like your dicamba, the 2,4-D, all of these things. They're phenoxys anyway. They're auxin analogs, and the plant doesn't recognize them, so it can't manage and destroy them. So auxin, IAA, indole acetic acid, is the plant natural auxin, and it makes this up in the growing tips, and it drips down by gravity. And when it drips down, it pulls the sugars with it. It's kind of like a tractor trailer. You got my sugar in the trailer and my auxin driving the truck. And now we're pulling from the source, the leaf, to the sink into the grains. Now, to manage the auxin so it doesn't become a herbicide, the plant has a molecule called IAA, or auxin oxidase.
Okay.
And oxidase is like a big Pac-Man, and it comes around and it eats the little baby auxin, and it keeps this all in check. Boron temporarily knocks out and kills Pac-Man. So now, plant's still making auxin. We got more trucks on the road, more trailers full of sugar running down that highway that we expanded open with a little bit of nitrogen.
Yep.
But we don't have Pac-Man. It's like getting the police off the road.
Yep.
So now we're just running overweight trucks right down into the grain.
Okay.
We mix this with molybdenum because molybdenum is, as a nutrient, molybdenum increases abscisic acid. So abscisic acid, auxin, ethylene, very female. Cytokinin and gibberellin, very male. So they're the opposites. They're kind of opposites, go back and forth. Gibberellin makes stress and outward exothermic growth.
Okay.
So by adding the moly to the boron, we make the boron work better because it inhibits that gibberellin and forces everything down. So we don't have trucks also going up. So moly makes it directional into the grain. Boron just brings bigger trucks into the field.
That's so interesting because I think of the moly side too, the importance of having that as a for converting nitrate into a protein too.
Absolutely.
So it's just these elements, these micro elements. There's key things they're involved with, but it's just amazing how much other parts of the system that maybe is not talked about as much, but it's just as important. Because we talk about these products like Launch and Balancer with the different micronutrients, the different ratios there to allow that plant to produce, like we talked about, sugars and getting all those sugars, those reserves, energy into that ear or into that pod, which then correlates into yield. So that's one thing. Every time I hear Molly, I think of nitrogen efficiency, which we talked about that with Nitro Boost. But actually going down deeper about why Molly fits good with that boron. Yes. Is it helping you with nitrogen efficiency? Yes. But also it's making sure that it's correct me if I'm wrong, like a 2-lane road instead of just boron going as hard as it can.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have to manage the direction of that road.
Yes.
And at different timings, we want the road to go in different directions.
Okay.
So, and we like nitrogen. We're, as farmers, we use nitrogen to manage the carbon budget. We're really farming carbon, and we're using nitrogen as the original growth regulator to measure it. And nitrate is great, but too much of it makes tall, skinny, spindly, unproductive plants.
Yep.
High yield comes from short, fat plants. And it's important that even if we're using nitrates, we're converting into those amines for the actual protein and productive auxin-dominant growth.
Okay. So launch is best fit for stages 1 and 2.
Absolutely. Use that to set the frame.
Balancer. Would you see that? Let's just say they're doing a Y drop at V10. Is that a time to start thinking about? Is that where that transition's happening?
Yeah, right around that timing. I usually your real targeting corn's easy to talk about because it's so well documented.
Yep.
And in that V6 to V8 timing, you're setting rows and columns. Okay. So you want to be ready for that with the launch, so that it's there, it's on time. And then after that, once you're in that at least the V10 to tassel, then you're starting to prepare for reproduction. On bean, you might be looking at an R2 application,
Okay.
VR to R2. On corn, I'm generally a little bit earlier because corn is super determinate. So,
and the number of sinks.
Oh, yeah, it's easier to grow corn.
You know what I mean? Because
I shouldn't say that out.
We might need to cut that. No. A corn plant, more times than not, has 1 sink.
It's pretty close
to
1.
If you have 2, people are grinning.
Oh, you're happy.
You know what I mean? When you think of a soybean plant, how many sinks you have.
Yeah, it's confusing. There's so many. And it's not just the bean. Another valid sink on a soybean is the nodule. Yeah. And if you completely cut out that nodule, you're not going to get any nitrogen. So like a bean, it takes 2/3 the amount of nitrogen, or it's 6 pounds of nitrogen to grow 1 bushel of bean. 4 of those pounds must come from the nodule. Yep. We can only give it 2 pounds on top of that. And so, if you kill the nodule by not feeding it, you got to give it a good drip of carbon, sugar. Otherwise, it's going to die, and you're going to lose immediately 66% of your bushel.
Wow.
So soybean gets very complicated.
Well, and I think it's one of those things that, if a person's like, well, I want to try a product like Balancer, you could see returns in both crops, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But I think of how many sinks there are on a soybean. To help that plant guide to where those sinks are, it might be a slightly better fit. And when I say if it was one or the other, that's where I'd start.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where I would start.
From the gas tank sense, your beans, they typically like your calcium, boron, molybdenum. Beans love that.
Yep.
Corn, they like my divalents. So, you're in your zinc, manganese, magnesium, copper, iron, things like this. The corn's generally responding a little bit more. Both of them need sulfur. Sulfur really is a macro. Nitrogen, obviously. I think we can have another talk about the essentiality of phosphorus. I think I can make the claim, and I think we can make the claims that phosphorus is not necessarily an early season establishment essential. I almost see more use for it later in the season. And but anyway, potassium, nitrogen are pretty balanced, and we can go on and on.
The good news is we will record more. But for this film, talking about the launch product and the Balancer product, launch is for your steps 1 and 2. Which the end of that on corn would probably be V10. You'd switch over to balancer to help translocate sugars, but then also make sure the pathways in the plant are staying open for both ways,
Sure,
regulating
yeah.
stuff. So, Robert, that was awesome. With Singular Agronomics, you can follow our podcast. We have more videos like this on AgMerica's products. Please take a peek, and we would love to see you there.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Guys, thanks for watching the content so far. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got all the full-length podcasts, other video information, tutorials on there. Also on all the major podcast platforms and social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. So if you like this, go ahead and check more out on all those platforms.